Well, hey, friends. Welcome to another chat with a pastor. So, for the past several weeks throughout the season we've been getting together and chatting with a pastor. And today I get to hang out with Jonathan Hill. Jonathan, how
Hi,
you doing, man?
I'm good, doing good. Thanks, Jesse.
Awesome. Jonathan is our new worship minister at OCC, and we're so excited to have him as part of our team. He's been a joy to hang out with, and so we thought for our time together tonight, we just chat, and so give you an opportunity to get to know Jonathan a little bit more. Jonathan, we're just going to talk about life and
Sure.
kind of who you are, and so to start us off, tell us what's something that not everyone knows about you.
Um, let's see. If you asked me mountains or beach, I'd probably have trouble saying which one. I like beach and I like
Hmm.
mountains.
Nice.
Angela likes the beach a lot. Angela's my wife, and so probably I'd have to say beach. But
Hmm.
that's not that in depth. Something really in depth about me that people might not know. I am an antique Lego dealer.
Oh, antique
Yeah,
Lego
I
dealer.
mean, I don't know. You have to like Google what the definition of antique is. I think it's
Yeah.
something over a certain number of years old. And I
Hmm.
like to buy and sell Legos on eBay. It's like a side hobby of mine.
Hmm.
I buy and sell old sets, and back before coronavirus, you go to garage sales and look for people selling old sets and Star Wars sets, and it's just fun. I've loved Lego since I was a kid. I have a bunch of them. When my parents finally moved out of our childhood home, my dad called me and he was like, "Hey, I've got these six giant Rubbermaid bins of Legos in the attic. Do you want them?" And I was like, "Whoa, whoa, yes, I want them. Send them
Don't
to
get rid of
me.
them.
Don't get rid of them." So then they paid to move them, I think, and then brought them to me.
Wow. So
Yeah, but I love Legos. So
could you like go to a yard sale and tell if something is like valuable in terms of Legos?
I mean, if it's a yes, it's I guess that's a kind of embarrassing to say. Yeah, I mean,
That's
you first
cool.
of all, you can tell, if it's Lego or one of the knockoff brands. You can tell like how old because they use different colors now than they did back then. I
Hmm.
particularly like the Castle series sets. So if you took me to a yard sale and showed me a bin of Legos, I could kind of poke through it and tell you this might be worth buying for $10 or it might not. You know.
Wow. Dude, that's awesome. I should have you come over and look at my old Legos sometime. We have a
Wait,
bunch.
time out. You have old Legos?
Yes. Yeah,
This
like
isn't. I'm genuinely interested.
yeah, we have a bunch of Legos from like I had four older brothers, and so all of us growing up had different Lego sets,
Yeah.
and so they've just compiled over the year and ended up at my house. So
Well, that sounds like we've got ourselves a date. That sounds
yeah,
fantastic.
yeah,
Also, I
absolutely,
can
man.
consult. I can tell you, hey, you have this set. This is worth $100 on eBay. Let me help you sell it. And I'm not going to. I mean, you're right. Whatever.
That could be
That's fun for
incredible.
me too. That's fun for me too. Just to help people see what they have in their basement. It's fun.
Hmm. Well, dude, so tell us a little bit more about yourself, your family, yeah, just in general.
Yeah. My wife Angela and I have been married 8 years, and our anniversary is in December. And so
Hmm.
we have three little kids. Our oldest is Lisette, and she's 7. And then our middle daughter is Lydia, and she's 4. And our son's name is Jude, and he's 2.
Hmm.
And they are wonderful and full of energy, and the pandemic's been hard on them to be stuck in the house. We have a nice backyard. We've been able to play outside, and sometimes we would just get in the car and drive around for the sake of driving.
Hmm.
But they're wonderful, outgoing kids. Lisette officially finished first grade. The back half of it was at home, of course, and so she'll start second grade at the fall. Here we live up in Wadsworth, and Lydia will be in preschool, and Jude is not done school yet. But his birthday is in December, so he'll be 3 in December. Um,
Your kids have
uh,
awesome names.
well, thank you. We knew Lisette is kind of the French version of Elizabeth.
Hmm.
And Angela's family has a lot of French in it, and my family has some French in it. And so we wanted to kind of have a French name. Um, Angela had a really good friend in school growing up whose name was Lisette, and so she has a good memory of her. And so,
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
you can't name your kid somebody they have a bad connotation of that name, right?
Yes.
And yeah, thank you. They have cool names. We love their names. They're wonderful. We met way back when in 2009. I used to be a professional performer, and that might be another phone conversation. I used to
Hmm.
be a performer, and so I was doing a show in Branson, Missouri called the 12 Irish Tenors, and I met Angela. I was volunteering doing some music at a church there, and she was the student ministries director, and so I kind of worked for her for a year.
Hmm.
And I was in another relationship, she was in another relationship, and we just became really good friends. And then those relationships ended, and a year after that, even, I think about right, somebody brought it to my attention, hey, this Angela's like your best friend, we ever thought of asking her out? And so
Hmm.
I asked her out, and we went on a date at the end of May. We got engaged on July 9th, and then married on December 10th. So it was, once we knew and started dating, went really fast after that.
Hmm.
It was
That's
really
really
fun.
cool, man. Yeah, we do need to have another conversation about the Irish tenors.
Yeah.
So you've been working at OCC now for how long has it been now? A
Well, it was like April. It
couple.
was right after Easter, April 13th.
Yeah. So
So, oh, May, almost 2 months. Yeah.
almost 2 months, and
Yeah.
we're almost to our first like live. Well, as we're recording this, actually, we're almost to our
Yeah.
first live physical service,
Right.
and it's been an interesting time. But throughout your time, like who's your favorite coworker so far? Obviously, me, right?
Oh yeah, Jesse, you're my best coworker. I was bringing some stuff into my empty office, and you helped carry the stuff in. So
Dude, that's
you're my
right.
favorite. No, but really, so we had this past, as we're recording this, Tuesday was 2 days ago. We had our first in the building staff meeting that I was able to be at. And that really felt like the first day of school. I mean, we all ate lunch together afterwards, and it was kind of like, hey, where do I sit? And everyone's great,
Hmm.
right? And it's not like no one wants to sit with me, but it's very strange, because I've been working with you guys and watching your talking heads on the computer, for the past 2 months, and now we're starting to meet in person. And I got to meet some members of the worship arts team on Wednesday as we're
Mm.
recording this yesterday, which was really fun to meet them in person and actually do a rehearsal.
Mm.
So that was fun.
That's
Yeah, it's
awesome.
like we're starting, even though I'm 2 months in.
Starting afresh.
Yeah,
Oh man, well we're glad to have you on our team.
thanks.
So tell me what is something in your life that you're deeply passionate about? What's something that drives you or you care a lot about?
Um, I get really excited with this idea of continuous improvement and not
Mm.
not settling for mediocrity,
Mm.
and that gets defined all kinds of different ways. But what I just mean is don't sit in the status quo and just do it for the sake of doing it. I regularly like to ask, why are we doing this?
Mm.
And so the way that kind of plays out as a worship pastor is considering, why are we doing what we're doing in our church services and our public gatherings. That's primarily my responsibility here, is to be in charge of orchestrating our public gatherings for worship. Why are we doing what we're doing? Is it effective? And then how can we improve upon that? And so that's an area that I'm really passionate about. And I think that church history is full of people trying to discover the current way of expressing themselves and responding to God in worship,
Mm.
um, over all the years. I mean, since the church began, people have been expressing themselves to God in a way that makes sense in the context that they're in.
Mm.
And here we are in 2020. So what does that look like? And how can we continuously improve upon that and not let our response to God become stale or rote
Mm.
or bored or simply out of like a guilt or an obligation, but instead just an outpouring of excitement and joy because of what God has done for us and what we get to communicate to Him in response to that.
Hmm. So what, in your opinion, like what leads to like a meaningful worship or meaningful worship experience? Like
Yeah,
how's that created or
yeah,
experienced for people?
yeah. I mean, what a great question. I think, especially today. So you can look back 10 years ago to 2010 and 30 years ago to 1990, you can look back and go, how did worship look then, and then make that inform your decision or your input today. And I think we have to be really careful about that, because there are things from history that we can pull from that are wonderful, and there are things that maybe weren't as successful, or things that were wonderful that just don't work today.
Mm.
And so because we have, I mean, it's perfect that your phone just rang, because that has nothing to do with this, but I mean, I've got mine right here too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have our phones with us at all times. So we have access to like the entirety of human knowledge and experience, at the touch of a button instantly. And I'll do a timeout and pause and say, you asked me a question on my passion area, so I can go on and on. So I'll try and make it brief. We have the entirety of human existence pretty much in the palm of our hands instantly. So we don't need to go to a church building or even just a concert. I'm a big John Mayer fan. I like Mumford and Sons. You don't have to go to a concert of those famous artists to see them perform. I can watch it anytime, anywhere on my phone. And then in Christian music, you can watch those artists perform their songs anytime, anywhere. And that can be a really great form of private worship, which is excellent and highly commendable. So because of that, that just in and of itself makes it different than worship was 10 years ago, 30, 50 years ago, just simply by nature of that fact. And there's nothing we can do about that.
Yeah.
So you asked me, what is it that makes like for an effective worship experience? I think it's a time when a group of people, because again, you can do that private worship any other time, when a group of people have come together and they experience God as a group, which is just different than any other time that you can worship. So that can be just your family unit, just you and your best friend, just you and your spouse. That can be 100 people. It can be 10,000 people. Each of those things experiences God differently. But that one singular moment when you get to experience God in that group will not be repeated, right? Once that ends, it ends. And even if you watch it recorded later on this, that's a different experience watching it later. But in that moment, in that time, and in that space, that's unique and won't ever be recreated again. And just as a sidebar, when I hear people say to me sometimes, hey, how come we don't sing more of this type of song? Or how come we don't sing more of, I love this song, whether it's a song from 1950 or from 2002. I think what they're really asking is, in that moment, when I sang that song this many years ago, I had this experience with God. And boy, do I wish I could have that experience again. When I sang Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing, when I was 11 years old at grandma's church, and this happened, and I felt Jesus' presence for the first time, I want that again. So how come we aren't singing Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing? Which we will, by the way. I love that song. But how come we're not doing that song? It's not because we don't like those songs, and it's not because we don't think they're effective. It has nothing to do with that. I think what you're asking is, I long to have a connection with the Holy Spirit. Can you help me do that? And I think that's where those questions come from. So, I mean, yeah, like I said, I could keep
I love
going.
that.
So
That's really
stop.
cool.
I'm going to pause.
Absolutely, man. That's awesome. But yeah, I find that really intriguing because I've heard before that, our memories are formed, and even when we reflect on those memories, they're slightly altered by the moment in which we're reflecting on those memories.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
deep.
like uh, the repetition of like a worship experience in our memory, maybe we're remembering a worship song and then singing it again in another meaningful moment, and the reinforcement of that over time, I feel like would create a sincere bond to a song or an experience.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's really fascinating. I love that, man.
It's good stuff. It drives me, and it makes me excited to do what I do, and it's fun. And I'm glad that you asked me that, because I can talk to Angela about this stuff all day, every day, and boy, is she wonderful. She'll listen all the time, but sometimes she's like, "Hey, can we pause for a second and have dinner? Be on a date?" I'm like, "Oh, you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. That sounds
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
So, what is something else that maybe God has been teaching you lately in your life, Jonathan?
So we, going into the pandemic, so I started here in April. We were looking for a new church home, and God was teaching. God kept bringing me to Isaiah 40,
Mm,
Those who wait on the Lord shall have their strength renewed and be lifted up on wings like eagles. They'll run and not grow weary.
mm,
Those truths were, I mean, trying to, it's strange when you say God kept bringing me back to a particular verse of scripture, but I'd go to pray and that just kept coming to mind. So I'd reread it and reread it and say, what are you trying to show me? As if that verse is difficult to interpret, right? I mean,
mm,
the the easiest thing is what it says very plainly, and that is that we needed to wait on God, and He was going to renew us and lift us up and take care of us. And our experience is not unique. I mean, people have been reading and praying that scripture for years and years and years. But for me, that just was very apparent. And looking back now, 3 months, I guess, since this really started, kind of the beginning of March, um, God has just been incredibly faithful and incredibly kind to us and incredibly
mm,
patient. And taught us so many things about ourselves that we needed to identify, trying to root out, that big word of sanctification, trying to root
mm,
out parts of us that is, so part of, like a negative side of that continuous improvement is I get impatient and I get antsy and I want to start
mm.
achieving things. I want to start getting stuff done. And sometimes I'll rush ahead without thinking through the details or thinking through the real work that needs to be done. So
Mm,
being slow and listening to God is just wonderful. And yeah, learning to wait on Him has been something I've been learning a lot recently.
mm.
Yeah, Isaiah 40. If you're watching and you haven't read it recently, go read the whole chapter. It's great.
Yeah, go check it out. Jonathan, I love that. Uh, as you expressed there, you want to deepen, you want to grow and work through those things in your soul. I think that's something that a lot of us struggle with is
Yeah,
working through the uh, just whatever layers we have beneath it might be from something in our childhood or just something from our personality type or whatever it is. We got these layers and things rooted in us. And I think it's so important for us to spend that time flushing it out with the Lord. And it's cool that you've
yeah,
had a season of doing some of that recently
yeah,
here. Hmm. Awesome. And so, I mean, speaking of like the season that we've been in, what if you were to, I guess, as we close and wrap this thing up, if you were to speak to someone who's just checking us out online and listening and to know you,
yeah,
what's an encouragement you'd like to share with them? Of
yeah.
yeah,
Check your basement for antique Legos. You know someone to call.
yes,
Um, I think Colossians 3, like 15, 16, 17 have been real foundational for me. And in it, Paul is telling this church to let the word of Christ dwell in them richly and to allow that
mm,
word of Christ to teach them and admonish them in all wisdom, and to do that through the singing of psalms and hymns and spiritual songs. And then whatever you do in word or deed, do it all with thankfulness. And so, as a word of encouragement, let the word of Christ dwell in you richly. And so, let me encourage you guys. Even if it's Isaiah 40 or if it's from Colossians or wherever, let that word of Christ, the Bible that we have, allow it to dwell in you richly and allow it to teach you and
mm,
admonish you and encourage you with all wisdom. Um, yeah, allow
mm,
the word to change you, to actually have an effect on your life.
mm.
I don't
Thanks,
know.
Jonathan.
That's where I'm at right now, I guess.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And it's funny how that kind of brings and ties together a lot of what we've ended up chatting about on these chats with a pastor over the past couple months. Is this experience of living in rhythm with God and letting God teach us and mold us and shape
Yeah,
us. And
yeah,
man, I'm so glad for who God's made you into, and that we get to be on a team together, work
yeah,
together, chase after the kingdom together.
yeah, yeah.
And so, Jonathan, thanks for hanging out, man.
Hey, man, it's been great. I love
Yeah,
chatting.
yeah. I
I
hope
love it.
anyone joining us got to. I hope you enjoyed getting to know Jonathan. Well, feel free to reach out sometime. But yeah, feel free to shoot Jonathan an encouragement and just let him know how much you appreciate him. Jonathan, again, man, thanks. Y'all have a great night. See you around,
Thanks.
Jonathan.
All right, we'll talk to you later. Bye.